Hi, I'm Jason, and thanks for listening to The Slippery Slope. This is my very first video podcast. So I signed up to do the video podcasting on Anchor, just sitting at home, trying it out. And we'll see how it goes. Hey, just wanted to do a quick one for my first one, from the first video podcast. Just wanted to try this out, and there's just one topic I want to talk about today. And I'd seen a bit on the news about it. Obviously, we've had the protests going on in Victoria over the pandemic bill, and some of the footage that had come out with people using having gallows, vision of people, mimicking hanging people, this kind of thing. It's very weird. I'm all for protesting. I think the public need to stand up and be heard and voice their opinions and get involved in the fight, get involved in the argument. But this disgusting imagery of pretending to hang people, pretending to harm, injure, kill people, it's not needed. I think you really need to have a hard look at yourself if that's the way you think. We live in a democracy still, and why I believe that people need to talk about the things like this bill and politics in general is because if we're more open and we discuss these things openly and honestly, then we don't need things like making threats to people. Okay, we just need to be open and honest and be able to voice our opinion, and not just hide at home and whinge about things, but then we don't actually go out and voice it. We need to get involved in the political debate, especially as a Christian. For a long time, and I know in churches it's been a thing that you don't discuss politics from the pulpit, which I firmly believe is I believe it's wrong. For starters, I know that was taught in Bible colleges around Australia. I think it's a very narrow-minded, and it's silly, and I believe it's wrong teaching, to be honest. Jesus, when Jesus had disagreements all the time with the Pharisees, and obviously they were involved in politics. The whole reason why you could put the argument forward, I believe, that Jesus being killed by the Jews was very political. They were using politics. He was railing against the politics of the day. John the Baptist was killed. It was something that when I was listening to Pastor James Cadiz, he pointed out that John the Baptist was killed because he was standing up for righteousness and pointing out to Herod that his lifestyle was not right. What he was doing was not right. That's political, and he had his head chopped off. So, he was speaking out against the unrighteous behaviour of a political figure of the day, and he was killed. So I think, to my mind, that's politics. That is Christians. That is, I think, what Jesus described him as the greatest prophet to ever live. I think I might be wrong. I'm not a Bible teacher, but he got described as something. Had some very good kudos given out by Jesus. Anyway, all I'm saying is that to me that seems political, and he was killed for it. So I think churches, Christians should be involved in the political argument, not argument, but in politics, and politics should be discussed, because we can discuss it truthfully and from a biblical perspective. A biblical perspective, not a Christian perspective, because Christian perspectives are very, very different sometimes, but a biblical perspective, if you're going to be open and honest about the biblical perspective. Hey, anyway, that's not really what I wanted to discuss. So I really want to talk about what's, like I said, getting back to what's happened in Victoria and some of these protests and some of the way things have gone a little off track. People having this imagery of, hanging people in a noose and all this kind of stuff. But, however, and it wasn't lost on me, and I'm glad to see it hasn't been lost on others, with the hypocrisy in the media and how this kind of imagery has come up in other protests, and yet the media didn't. They didn't rail against it at all. They didn't. They didn't condemn that kind of imagery at all. And when it comes to some of the climate crisis imagery that we see, they use some disgusting imagery. But the media don't criticise them. No, it's the climate crisis. It's the protest of the new generation. Anyway, we'll get into this. This is skynews.com.au. Title says media's criticism of distasteful protest imagery needs to apply across the board. Credlin is saying this. Peter Credlin. So Sky News host Peter Credlin says there is a rank hypocrisy in the media's reporting after there was a gallows with a representation of Daniel Andrews in the noose at a protest in Melbourne. Mrs. Credlin said any use of gallows or a noose is repugnant and runs the risk of diminishing the very cause that good and decent people are protesting about. Wholeheartedly agree. But media sources have not condemned similar imagery of past protests in the same way. And this is what I believe. Now, she goes on to say at a Canberra climate protest in October 2019, there was a lifelike baby trussed up in a gallows with a noose around the doll's neck and a protester also with a large rope around her neck. I don't know that I heard or saw the same media outcry then as we're hearing now. The criticism about the gallow imagery and protests at the home of individuals, that's justified, fair enough. But if we're fair dinkum, it's got to apply across the board, regardless of the politics or otherwise. It's nothing more than a cheap shot. And she's right. She's 100% right. It needs to apply across the board. Can anyone remember what happened? Where was the media when people were putting up pictures of Donald Trump getting hung, or some of the media, some of the celebrities making weird, very disgusting comments about his family, about his son. I think his name's Barron. The media didn't seem to care when people made disgusting comments and threats. People like that clown Madonna, or that other idiot who I used to like, Robert De Niro. They said some disgusting things. That wannabe comedian, redhead, they made some disgusting comments about Donald Trump and his family and things that you would think, mate, that was seemed like some violent threats, really. And yet the media, they didn't seem to care that much. It's got to apply. Okay, I'm not a fan of Dan Andrews. I think his politics is disgusting, to be honest. And I think he's got a lot to answer for. I think he's made a lot of bad decisions. However, you cannot make these kinds of threats, and it doesn't help anyone's argument if this is the kind of thing that you do. Representation of Dan Andrews in a noose. At the end of the day, I disagree with him. However, he is still there trying to work for the Australian people, for the Victorian people. And we do need to respect that. He is putting forward his view. And if you disagree, well, then you need to voice your opinion. But you don't make these things that really could be construed as making threats, violent imagery like this. It's not on. It's not good. But like I said, the media needs to put this across the board. If that's what they want to do, well, the same rules apply for everyone. think of the climate protests over in Glasgow just the other week. Little Greta, what's her name? Greta Thunberg. You know, in her climate protest, and she's decided to become a little potty mouth and swear, carry on. I still saw it on the news. I saw all that on the news. And yet no one was condemning her for her foul mouth. Just kind of dumb things down, don't we? Anyway, hey, like I said, this is my first video podcast. Thanks for joining me. Thank you for everyone who does listen. It's amazed me how the listenership has gone up so much, and just wanted to say thanks. So this is me. If you haven't seen me before, I do like to say too. So I do have. I'm also a musician. So and I go under J Fallon. I did just recently release an old song that I'd done ages ago, and just re-released it because I'm getting ready to do a new album. It's going to be a gospel album, a Christian album. So I'm getting ready to do that with the producer who worked on my last album with me. Probably going to steer away from doing secular stuff again and just go back to doing Christian music, gospel music. Just, playing in bars and all that stuff just gets a bit boring, to be honest. I like doing all sorts of music, but I do prefer to do what you would call worship music, I suppose, worship Christian music. So that's the other stuff that I do. So yeah, please go and check it out. Jay Fallon. You can find me on Spotify, all that stuff. But yeah, so this is me. If you haven't seen my ugly face before, thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening to my podcast. Really appreciate it. And thanks for listening to The Slippery Slope. As always, this is all just my opinion. But hey, also, if you want to join me, join the conversation, let me know what you think. Go to you can go to Spotify and leave messages, I believe, or Anchor. Also Twitter. I put everything up on Twitter and Facebook. So yeah, let me know what you think. If you want me to make changes, let me know. Some people have told me they don't like the cow noise at the end. I really just put it up there because in my mind, it just, I don't want to take myself too seriously. All this stuff is just my opinion. I'm no professional reporter. I just decided that I wanted to talk about things and wanted to discuss things, and I can't just... I felt like I feel like Australia is going down a path, spiritually, biblically, that I don't like. And I think it's changed so much since when I was a kid, and I wanted to discuss it and see if anyone else wanted to listen. And people do listen. There you go. Thanks for joining me once again. It's just my opinion. Leave a comment. Tell me what you want changed, if you want anything changed. And thanks for listening to The Slippery Slope.